They said I was crazy for posting this. Maybe they are right. Maybe I am crazy. But I need to tell someone. Anyone. I bought the house in Harrow Creek 3 months ago. Figured a small town, fresh air, maybe I could finally get some peace after everything. The divorce hit me hard. Lisa, I still see her in my dreams sometimes. Happy, before it all fell apart. The house was a steal, a Victorian-era fixer-upper on the edge of town, secluded. Exactly what I thought I needed. The realtor kept mentioning the Blackwood Estate nearby, said it was a local landmark, though abandoned for years. Gave me a bit of a shiver, even then. The first few weeks were okay, just the usual creaks and groans of an old house settling. Then the dreams started. I have always had sleep paralysis. The feeling of being awake but unable to move, a crushing weight on my chest. Usually it is just a shadow in the corner, a vague sense of dread. But these were different. They were vivid, real. I was in the Blackwood Estate, rotting wallpaper, cobwebs thick as shrouds, the air heavy with the smell of mildew and something else, something acrid like burnt hair. And I could feel it, a presence, watching me. The first time I dismissed it as stress. Divorce, new environment, old house, it all added up. But they kept happening. Every night, each one more intense. I started finding things. Symbols carved into the floorboards beneath the old carpets. Weird, geometric patterns that looked ancient. I tried to ignore them, but they burrowed under my skin. I started researching the Blackwood Estate. The local library had a small section on it. Sarah Chen, the librarian, was a lifesaver. She dug up old newspaper articles, town records, even some local folklore. The Blackwoods were one of the founding families of Harrow Creek. They made their fortune in coal mining, but there were rumors, whispers of dark rituals, pacts made with things best left undisturbed. Apparently, the Blackwood family suffered a series of tragedies. Suicides, madness, unexplained deaths. The estate was abandoned in the early 1900s, left to rot. People said it was cursed. I started losing time. I'd wake up in the middle of the night, disoriented, and find myself miles from my house, heading towards the Blackwood Estate. I wouldn't remember getting there, just a blank space in my memory. One night, I found myself standing at the gates, the wrought iron twisted and overgrown with vines. The house loomed in the darkness, a skeletal silhouette against the moon. I felt compelled. I had to go inside. I broke in. It was worse than my dreams. The air was thick with dust and decay. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the scuttling of rats and the distant creak of the house settling. I wandered through the empty rooms, my flashlight beam cutting through the darkness. I found a hidden chamber in the basement. It was filled with arcane symbols painted on the walls, ancient texts bound in leather, and bones. Human bones. There was a crude altar in the center of the room, stained with what looked like dried blood. I felt a wave of nausea, a primal fear that gripped me by the throat. I stumbled back, desperate to escape, but something held me there. A voice, whispering in my head, ancient, powerful. It spoke of promises, of knowledge, of power beyond my wildest dreams. I ran. I ran all the way back to my house, locked the doors, and didn't sleep for days. I went to see Dr. Vance, a therapist in the next town over. I told her everything. The dreams, the lost time, the symbols, the Blackwood Estate. She listened patiently, but I could see the skepticism in her eyes. She said it sounded like a severe case of sleep paralysis, exacerbated by stress and anxiety. She prescribed some medication and told me to try and relax. But I couldn't relax. I knew this was more than just stress. This was something real. Things started getting worse. The sleep paralysis episodes became more frequent, more intense. They weren't just dreams anymore. They were experiences. I could feel the cold, damp air of the Blackwood Estate on my skin. I could smell the rot, the decay, the acrid scent of burnt hair. I started seeing things in my waking hours, shadows flickering in the periphery of my vision, whispers in the empty rooms of my house. I felt like I was being watched. Always. People started disappearing. A young woman who worked at the grocery store, an old man who lived down the street. No one knew where they went. Detective Davies, the local sheriff, was investigating, but he didn't have any leads. I tried to warn him about the Blackwood Estate. I told him about the symbols, the hidden chamber, the bones. He looked at me like I was crazy, said I was wasting his time. I knew I had to do something. I couldn't just sit back and wait for whatever was happening to consume me, to consume the town. I went back to Sarah Chen. I told her everything. She was scared, but she believed me. She helped me research the Blackwood family further, digging deeper into the local folklore. We found old legends, tales of a dark entity imprisoned within the estate, bound by ancient rituals. The Blackwoods, it seemed, hadn't just been coal miners. They'd been keepers, guardians. They'd performed rituals to keep the entity contained, to prevent it from escaping into the world. But something had gone wrong. The rituals had weakened. The entity was stirring, and it was using me. I realized that the sleep paralysis wasn't just a psychological condition. It was a connection, a link between me and the entity. It was using my mind, my body, to break free from its prison. One night, during another sleep paralysis episode, I felt myself being pulled towards the Blackwood Estate. I couldn't resist. I was no longer in control. I was just a passenger in my own body. I found myself standing in the hidden chamber. The entity was there, not in a physical form, but as a presence. A malevolent force that filled the room, suffocating me, crushing me. It spoke to me again, its voice a chorus of whispers in my head. It promised me power, knowledge, immortality. All I had to do was let it go, let it break free. I almost did. I was so weak, so tired of fighting. But then I saw Lisa's face, her smiling face, from before everything went wrong. And I knew I couldn't give up. I had to fight. I don't know how, but I managed to regain a shred of control. I fought against the entity, pushing back against its influence. It was like wrestling with a monster in my own mind. I stumbled out of the hidden chamber and into the main part of the house. The entity was growing stronger. The air crackled with energy. The windows shattered. The walls groaned. The storm hit then. A violent, unnatural storm that seemed to be centered on the Blackwood Estate. Lightning flashed, illuminating the house in brief, stark bursts. The wind howled like a banshee. The townspeople were terrified. They huddled in their homes, praying for the storm to pass. But it wouldn't pass. Not until the entity was dealt with. I knew I had to stop it, but I didn't know how. I was just one man, alone, against a force of unimaginable power. Then Sarah Chen arrived. She'd found something in the library. An old ritual, a counterspell that could be used to re-imprison the entity. But it required a sacrifice, something of great personal value. We found Detective Davies. He was shaken, but he believed us now. He'd seen things he couldn't explain. He was willing to help. We gathered in the main hall of the Blackwood Estate. The storm raged outside. The entity's presence was overwhelming. Sarah Chen began chanting the ritual. Her voice trembled, but she pressed on. Detective Davies stood guard, his gun drawn, his face pale but determined. I felt the entity pushing against me, trying to break through my defenses. I fought back, drawing on every ounce of strength I had. The ritual was working. The entity was weakening. But it wasn't enough. It was still too powerful. Then Martha Olson showed up, the old woman who lived near the Blackwood Estate. She was carrying a small bottle filled with a dark, viscous liquid. She said it was a potion, brewed according to an old family recipe. It would give me the strength I needed to finish the ritual. I drank it. It tasted like dirt and blood. I felt a surge of energy coursing through my veins. I felt connected. To the land, to the house, to the entity itself. I knew what I had to do. I gathered up old photographs, pictures of Lisa and me when we were happy, when we thought we had a future together. I piled them in the center of the room and set them on fire. As the flames consumed the photographs, I felt a part of me die. A part of me that still clung to the past. A part of me that still hoped for a future with Lisa. The sacrifice worked. The entity screamed, a sound that shattered glass and shook the foundations of the house. It was forced back into its prison, its power diminished. The storm began to subside. The lightning faded, the wind died down, the sun peeked through the clouds, casting a pale light on the ravaged landscape. But the entity wasn't gone. I could still feel its presence, lingering in my mind. It was weakened, but not destroyed. It would be back. Someday. Sarah Chen was badly hurt. She had to be taken to the hospital. Detective Davies, he didn't make it. He died protecting us. The Blackwood Estate was sealed off, declared a hazardous site. No one was allowed to go near it. The town began to recover, but the fear remained. The memory of what had happened, the knowledge that something dark and ancient still lurked beneath the surface. I went back to my house. I tried to go back to my life, but it wasn't the same. I was changed. Scar, Dr. Vance still sees me. She tries to help me understand what happened. She says it was all in my head, a manifestation of my grief, my anxiety, my guilt. Maybe she's right. Maybe I am crazy. But I know what I saw. I know what I felt. I know that something evil resides within the Blackwood Estate, and I know that it's not completely gone. I still have nightmares. I still see shadows in the corners of my eyes. I still hear whispers in the empty rooms of my house. I feel like I'm being watched. Always. I look in the mirror sometimes, and I see something different in my eyes. A glint of red. Reptilian. I don't know what that means. I don't know if I stopped it, or if I just delayed the inevitable. All I know is that I'm not the same person I was when I bought this house, and I'm afraid of what I'm becoming.